Uh, Everyone, Assalamu alaikum. You are welcome to my lecture, and today I am going to talk about globalization and the geopolitical transformation. When I use the word globalization, let me tell you very clearly what I mean. The common understanding of globalization is that it is the increased and enhanced interdependence of free market economy in the world, that different nations are freely doing business and undertaking economic exchanges. For me, that is not globalization. Globalization is not the increased and enhanced interdependence. For me, it means something else. So let me tell you very clearly, I take globalization as Americanization of the world. Please note my underline this thing. Globalization means the Americanization of the world. And how it all started? It started with a very significant geopolitical event of the last century, and that was the end of Cold War in 1989 and the collapse of Soviet Union. Cold War, you may be aware of the fact, it was a war which started between the Soviet Union Eastern Bloc and the Western world, or the free world, or the NATO bloc. After post-war 1945, the world was divided into two blocks, and it came to be known as the bipolar world. Half of the world was in the socialist bloc led by Soviet Socialist Republic, and the other half was led by United States of America, and it was known as the free world or the Western world. That system collapsed in 1989 with the first Afghan Jihad, the first Afghan war, in which Afghanistan played a very crucial role, and Pakistan was also part and parcel of that, Afghan Jihad, along with the Western support. Soviet Union experienced a crushing defeat and almost fled from Afghanistan in 1987-88. Just fled from Afghanistan, left it in tatters. Afghan society, Afghan economy, Afghan polity was completely shattered, and Soviet Union left it. But the impact and the consequences of the Afghan Jihad or invasion into Afghanistan by the Soviet Union, which they thought that they will run into Afghanistan and Afghanistan will be over by midnight, it will be part of the Soviet Socialist Republic, that dream was shattered. And Afghan Mujahideen, they launched a valiant resistance and struggle, and whatever way you look at it and whatever way you interpret and explain it, that America supported the jihad or Pakistan supported the jihad, but that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Mujahideen were victorious. But what happened in the backdrop of that Afghan jihad, that the Cold War ended between the Soviet Union and the United States of America, and it finally culminated with the dissolution, with the dismemberment of the Berlin Wall in October 1988. From October 1989 till 1991, August 1991, Soviet Union saw its utter collapse under the presidentship of Mikhail Gorbachev, Edward Shevardnadze, and all these people. They presided over the there are different theories about the collapse of Soviet Union. That is not my topic of today. I just wanted to give you a backdrop that was the geopolitical event, the most significant geopolitical event of the last century, 20th century. Now, of the current century, of the 21st century, the most important first geopolitical event was this attack on the Twin Towers, New York, on 9/11. That was the first important geopolitical transformation of the world, started on that day. We are now having different interpretation about that attack on the Twin Towers. I am not going into the detail of that, whether it was an Al-Qaeda sponsored attack, whether it was CIA sponsored attack, that is not important. What is important is the consequence of that event, and that event led to the hegemony and the dominant power of the United States of America. And that 9/11, you can say, is the cutoff point from which the globalization, this brutal globalization of the world started. And the American neoliberal economic model and liberal democracy, human rights, and all the American values were exported by the Americans through force. You can ask me, how, sir? How that happened? It was through the invasion, the Afghan invasion in October, right up in September, the Twin Towers were attacked. And in October, America, United States of America and its NATO allies, they attacked Soviet Union in October 2001. After 2 years, America invaded Iraq. Saddam was the president of Iraq. America invaded Iraq on the pretext of the presence of weapons of mass destruction. Americans and their allies, they claimed, and there was a whole drama was staged in the Security Council that there are weapons of mass destruction in the Iraq, possessed by the Iraq. American Secretary of State Colin Powell testified in this, and now they don't. Tony Blair, Colin Powell, George Bush, they don't claim it. The other day, Bush, we said that it was a terrible war in Iraq. We devastated Iraq. America devastated Iraq. Anyway, that was the second part of the second installment. Then America gradually expanded into Syria. America expanded into Egypt, into Sudan, into North Africa, into Central Africa, into Pakistan. Most of the, you can say, regions of the world, which were predominantly Muslim regions, they became the dominant operational centers of the most significant geopolitical event of this century, that was the post 9/11 war on terror. So war on terror, the so-called war on terror, America's war on terror, was unleashed on the Muslim lands and on the Muslim people, on the Muslim populations. Migrations took place, genocide, a million Afghans died, more than a million Iraqis died, 100,000, more than 500,000 Syrians died, and more than a million Syrians have migrated. Migrations, deaths, war, famine, uprooting, that took place because of this geopolitical event, first event. And now keep in mind that geopolitics of the world is not, and this has been the lesson of history. This insight, my insight is based on the historical knowledge that dominant power does not obey the rules of geopolitics. It invents its own rules and it uses power. It uses its brutal power, whether it is the United States of America, whether it is the Soviet Union, which invaded in the Eastern Europe under the Khrushchev, and whether it is in the past, the Mughal Empire or the Ottoman Empire or the Roman Empire, whichever great power you will look at, they dictate and they impose their power. This is what I call the dominant power theory. The dominant power enforces its own geopolitical vision on the rest of the world, and the rest of the world has to obey and follow that. So it's nice to talk about the rule-based world, a world in which, morality and principles and rules are observed, but they are not. The leftovers still, the leftovers of the Cold War, like the Kashmir problem, Indian occupation of the Kashmir, and the American satellite in the Middle East, the illegitimate state of Israel. Why Israel is there? Because it has the complete and total and full backing of the United States of America. And this small, tiny, illegitimate, occupied oppressor state has become a perpetual nuisance in the Middle East. It has become a perpetual source of conflict, and it has become a perpetual source of pain and suffering for the Palestinian Muslims and the Palestinian population and the Arabs at large. So where are the rules? Where is the rule-based world of the United States of America? And what rules is now America is invoking in Ukraine? America has to look into its own policies also. The second important event of this century, and followed by the third important geopolitical, is happening right now, and that is Russia's entrance into the Ukraine. In February of this year, Russia entered into Ukraine, and there is a war going on, and more than 4 million people. That is tragic, that is very painful. 4 million Ukrainians have left their homes. Children, women, old people, young people, they are all around, they have spread all around Europe. The situation right now on the ground is the entire Ukrainian armed forces are decimated. But I am going to raise certain important questions. Number one, what will be the outcome of this war? Is this war going to end very soon? Does this war end in the near future? My answer is no. This war is not going to end very soon. This war is going to end when the Russia and the Russians have achieved their geopolitical and geostrategic objectives in the Ukraine. As long as that is the neutralization of the Ukraine. They want a demilitarized, neutralized and non-NATO Ukraine in their backyard. They don't want a Ukraine which is member of the NATO alliance, which is a militarized, nuclearized state, and which is an armed state. So as long as Russia and its strategists are not able to achieve that target, the war will continue. It may take months, it may take years. That is the answer to the first. The second question, and which is most significant and which has more dangerous implication, is can this war turn into a nuclear exchange, nuclear flare-up between the NATO and the Russia? That is the sticking point. That is the most dangerous tipping point of this war. My answer is yes. This war, this Ukraine conflict, has all the ingredients, all the recipes in it to suddenly explore and flare up into a nuclear war between NATO and its European America. NATO means America, led by US, and the European states, France, Germany, UK. UK is no more part of the EU, but it is, pursuing the same policy. It's part of the NATO and the G7. That is the most dangerous dimension of this conflict, and nobody is realizing that. When Putin ordered his troops to move into the Ukraine in February, so we heard from the US that, we'll decimate US with the nuclear weapons, nuclear attack. And before they could do anything, Putin, put his nuclear strategic weapons on high alert. Already. Russia has already put her nuclear weapons on high alert, on red alert. So any foolish movement, any foolish step by the US or her allies, the NATO in the Ukraine, or in any attack, if they are thinking of any elimination of Russia through a nuclear attack, that they should forget. Because before they attack, Russia will attack them. It is utter madness, it is utter foolishness, and it is utter lack of sight on the part of Western and American strategists, that they think that they can bring down Russia in Ukraine. No. Russia is not going to come down, Russia is not going to bow down, and Russia is not going to slow down unless she achieves her strategic and geopolitical objectives in Ukraine. And there is a logic behind it, because Russia has shown that she is a rising power. Russia is a rising power, and it has all the paraphernalia, it has all the qualification, it has all the strategic and economic ingredients with which it can challenge the dominant power, that is the United States of America. You see? And an Australian friend of mine, he is a policy analyst in Australia, and he would laugh and say that America is an old man of this world. America is now an old man. I told him, no, America is a democracy. It's a thriving democracy. It is a technologically advanced country. It is a superior country in so many ways, in its economy, in its GDP. So he would laugh and say that America is a tired old man of an archaic international system, a system which the Americans divide after post-war. America herself has trampled that system, and that is the United Nations. In my view, United Nations after the Ukraine war, it actually became ineffective after 9/11. The Ukraine war has sealed the fate of United Nations and the Security Council. And world now needs a new security contract, a new international security pact to keep the world secure, free of war and peaceful. But who is going to ring the cat? Who is going to bell the cat? Who is there? US want a security arrangement which benefits her and her allies. The Russia want a security system in which she is the beneficiary. And China, here is another rising power. There is another rising power, and that is China, People's Republic of China. China want a security arrangement in which she is dominant. Currently, South China Sea activity, the military activity, that is the third most important. Along with the Ukraine, the military activity of NATO and US allies in South China Sea and the People's Republic of China is intensifying with every day. Plus China's border skirmishes and border dispute with the Socialist Republic of India. India has aspirations, global and international aspirations for a superpower status, but India lacks the economic and the geopolitical will. India lacks the ability to engage herself into a sustained geopolitical conflict with either with China or with Pakistan. So that is the handicap. But now India is part of the Quad. That is the fourth important geopolitical event of this century. That is the geopolitical alliance of United States of America, Japan, Australia and India. India, I think, is the most unlikely partner of this Quad, so-called Quad arrangement. The four countries, they have come now. Japan, Australia and India, or you can say they are from the Asian continent, and America all the way from the North American continent, from across the Atlantic. What America is doing in Europe? The consequence of the Ukraine war will be faced by the European states, by France, by Germany, by Spain, Italy, UK, by Slovakia, by Poland, by Hungary, the immediate neighbors of Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, Slovakia, Czech Republic, they are going to suffer if Russia advances. And let me tell you, don't underestimate the strategic, geostrategic and geopolitical capability of the Republic of Russia. They can move further. The policy analysts in Washington and in the capitals of Western Europe and European states must realize that danger also. Because the logic is simple. As long as Russia feels threatened from NATO and its military might, Russia is not going to stop. Russia is going to secure her borders. Russia is going to secure her interest in the European region through force. They are not going to stop, So, Ukraine war has the potential to turn into a nuclear world, global nuclear war. Keep in mind. By all means, one foolish, and now if the Americans and their allies think that they can engage Russia into a prolonged proxy war like the Taliban has kept the Americans busy in the second Afghan war after 9/11, the both scenarios are entirely different. Because the geography of Afghanistan is entirely different from the geography of the Ukraine. If you look at the map of Ukraine and you look at the map of Afghanistan, there is a natural support from the mountains to any guerrilla resistance in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a fertile land where a guerrilla war can be launched against a mechanized, against a heavy army. America failed in Afghanistan because of that simple strategic strategic miscalculation. America did not fail in Afghanistan because Pakistan have not supported them. Or they have not received support from China, and even Russia was supporting them. Till 2016, Russia was even supporting the US in Syria. They were on the same page, Russia, China and US. But America's intrusion into Ukraine and promoting an Americanized model of democracy and Americanization of Ukraine threatened the Russian Federation, and Putin took the ultimate decision. And he gave in December, last year, he addressed in a press conference, he addressed to a Western journalist that you are parking missile in front of my house. And you are saying that I shouldn't react. I shouldn't be afraid of it. I shouldn't respond. And that statement was, I underlined that statement, and I said that there is going to be a war. And in February, Russia, entered into Ukraine. And now Ukraine it's a wasteland. It's a wasteland. And I don't know why their President Zelensky is prolonging the war. Why is fighting America's war in Ukraine? He should save his country. He should save his people. Already 4 million. And we have suffered we have seen the ravages of migration. We have also seen the ravages of internal displacement. During our war, when Operation Rai Ras was conducted in Swat, 1.4 million people, they migrated from northern part of Pakistan to Punjab and Sindh. A huge population shift took place. So this century is going to be shaped, and it is going to be shaped that who stands the ground. And America, is an old guard of the old system, which even America has not been fair in that system. America has perpetually and fully supported the illegitimate satellite state that is Israel in Middle East. And Israel, the root cause of all the conflict in Middle East. Now America has problem with China in the South China Sea and on Taiwan. On Taiwan. And note this, and this is an important another area, geopolitical area, geostrategic, in which China can attack Taiwan anytime, because China not only considers, China says, claims that Taiwan, Chinese Taipei, is a part of China. You know, China, Taiwan is a part of China, and there is no way China is going to compromise on it. Now, China has become an advanced military power. It has a strong army. It has strong nuclear arsenal. It has strong technological base. It is rapidly progressing and growing, except the recent setback of coronavirus, in which its economy has, recessed. It has all, and it is also, they want to have an exchange, a Chinese version of globalization, in which the world is a happy place, peaceful place, and in which all the people are buying the Chinese goods and Chinese services, all the states of all the nations of the world. But that is becoming a world power is never a peaceful activity. It is a painful activity. On the one hand, China want to become a power, world power, but on the other hand, they want to keep it peaceful. No, it's not. The dominant power always emerges through conflict and war, and it is there. All the ingredients of another war, another world war are there. And one foolish step by the NATO and allies, by the US in Ukraine, can flare up into a nuclear war. Similarly, one foolish step by the US in the South China Sea, and China, a step by China, an invasion of Taiwan, can flare up into a international war. Similarly, this alliance, Quad alliance, is going to play a very important role in the coming century. And what will be the future of the Muslim states? They are leaderless, they are rudderless, they don't know the direction, and because they need a lot of introspection, they need a lot of introspection, historical introspection, because all the top leaders of the Muslim world have been killed and eliminated by the US in our so-called war on terror. Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, Anwar al-Assad, Shah Faisal, all these people gradually have been eliminated. People who could stand up and formulate an independent Muslim stance towards the international security architecture. I have another thesis, and that is missing in today's geopolitical discourse, and that is that the role of the Muslim countries is missing in the international political arena. It is missing. As long as the Muslims, Muslim states, some sort of common ground has to be found. And if the Muslim states, they do not, come up, and they do not, come up with a common leadership and a common strategy, the world peace will remain a far-fetched dream. It will remain an illusion. But unfortunately, there are no strong leaders in the Muslim world right now. And similarly, the Arabs are ruled by the dynastic, they are the kingdoms, they are the sheikdoms, they are ruled by the families. And I don't think they have a vision to research and to give a rebirth to an Islamic civilization, an international Islamic civilization. They lack the ability to become a higher, to a thriving Islamic civilization, to provide her leadership. Turkey is part of the NATO. How can Turkey lay claim to the international leadership of the Muslim civilization? Yes, Pakistan is out of it. Pakistan can, but it doesn't have the ability, because it is part of the Western hemisphere. It is part of the Western influence of hemisphere as far as the geopolitical and geostrategic. And in coming days, it has to make difficult decision. We have also come of age, 75 years of history, and we have been part and parcel of the American policy during the Cold War and after the Cold War. During the war on terror, we were partners with the Americans. During the Cold War era, we were partners with the Americans. And now that partnership is again being revived. So, I don't see any hope, any future for, and the Middle East will remain a pocket of conflict and a place of war in this century also, because as long as the satellite illegitimate criminal state of Israel remains sponsored by, protected by the Americans, whenever a resolution is brought against Israel in the Security, America vetoes. Now, why America is crying if Russia is vetoing their resolutions in the Security Council? Why? How can America now talk about the ethics and morality of Ukrainian war? When the Russian ambassador in the Security Council, he claims that America is operating biological labs in Ukraine. America is giving biological weapons to the Ukrainian government. How can America take a moral stand? And how can America talk about democracy and freedom and liberty? All these, slogans and these notions are excellent, good. I also like them. I also like democracy. But practically, they are not implemented. Democracy for the Americans and the American state is different than democracy for Saudi Arabia, democracy for Egypt, democracy for Russia, for China, for Pakistan, after that for India. So these, the Ukraine war, the South China Sea, the Taiwan, Sino-US conflict, possible conflict on Taiwan or South China Sea, or Sino-Indian conflict on the Tibetan, border areas. It is highly likely. And if India has any claims to play a role in international geopolitical and geostrategic environment, India has to fight with China to claim the mantle. Otherwise, I don't see India can aspire to be a superpower. Pakistan, as of today, has no chance whatsoever to perform a leadership role. We are, as usual, have become subservient to the Western interest and to the Western world. And that is the best we can do. So, Ukraine war has the potential to become a nuclear war, to turn into an international conflict. It has and it will not end as long as Russia does not achieve her objectives. Second, this region of South China Sea and this border areas of China and India and Taiwan. That is the important another area of geopolitical transformation, and the Quad, that is a geopolitical transformation. And then you can say the leftover of Cold War, that is the Kashmir and the satellite state of Israel. They might cause some accidental strategic accident in the world. They have the potential. So that's it. Thank you very much. You have any